Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Father of a Stolen Child, Neil, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hey, good morning.
Good afternoon, everyone.
How's it going?
It's going well. Nobody's complaining, or at least not me. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
That's nonsense.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Arwin.
Good afternoon.
So after suggesting that you fiddle with your gain on your mic the other day, I did the same to mine, and I think I've broken the pot. I think I've broken the game pot. Now it's distorting. Wonderful. Now I've got to buy a new mic, which I haven't got enough money to do. Smash the PayPal link. Anyway, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon? We've had nonsense. Anyone actually want to claim that we've got evidence of it, though? Earth curve is the main thing we're talking about here. That's the main matter in this debate.
Well, the horizon is not geometric, but you can still think of it as obstructing things from view, though.
What do you mean?
Morning. How's it going? Good.
No complaints? Everything's good? Okay, well, moving on. Axial rotation. Any evidence thereof? Axial rotation of the Earth-based variety.
The radius for that.
When I ride my 10-speed.
Of the Earth-based variety.
I ride my 10-speed on the Earth.
Axial rotation.
They had evidence for me.
Go on, John.
I would be happy if they had evidence of an axis.
Yeah, they're going to need an R value for that. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Well, you need a
derive
ball
it
for
from
radius.
celestials. You can derive it from the celestials.
Derive it?
Yeah. Equator length.
Yeah, when
Calculate it.
I pummeled that guy the other day based on it, I heard you trying to jump in at the beginning. Were you trying to support the guy?
Yes.
I thought so. That's why I cut you off. I thought, Arwin, if he gets involved here, right, the guy will have a much better chance of dragging this out a longer time. And it dragged out long enough as it was.
Right, so yeah, when I get in and I hear like that's going for well, then I'm not gonna ball win it up because yeah, that's just gonna make you very agitated.
What's him getting support from you as you argue their nonsensical imaginary line being measured? Oh, what, my bad, derived, right, Arwin?
Yes. Yes, it's not presupposed at first. That comes afterward.
I'm glad I can summarise that without having to decipher what you mean. Arwin's saying that you go out and you take these let's put them in quotes, air quotes, measurements, right? But the person taking those measurements, they don't know that you're going to take the data, presuppose a sphere, and impose an arbitrary line around it, because that's going to be done after, right? So because the people taking the measurements aren't assuming R, it's the person after the measurements have been done that's going to insert the presupposition. Therefore, it's not a presupposition. No, wrong, Arwin. Very wrong.
It's more like a post supposition.
No, it's definitely still a presupposition. Just utilising data acquired by people who didn't know what you were going to do with it to make a presuppositional statement that Earth's a sphere based on your derivation of a line on the ground from the movement of the sun averaged. Yeah, that's just not going to happen now. It's still a presupposition, I'm afraid. Nice try, though.
Yeah, but it comes later. I understand what he's saying.
Right.
You don't do it first. You do it later.
But it fits. It all fits, right? So if you do it like that, then at the same time you can support it by pointing out that the horizon is not geometric, perhaps, but it still conceals things behind it. And if you combine that all with gravity, that nobody knows what it exactly is, but it still does things in their model of atmosphere and everything, yeah, then it all just works out. It's fine.
So one of my newest moderators, Paula, she asked to post a link, and I've just never bothered to take the spanner off her because I'm more than happy to have her as a moderator. Paula, whatever you want to do, do. There are no rules. You're a moderator because I know you know what to do. So I don't care what you do. Literally, I don't care. If you want to ban somebody, just ban them. Just thought I'd say that to Paula in the chat. Any evidence, any scientific evidence of gravity?
As soon as we know what it is, as soon as we discovered what it is, yes, I'm pretty sure there could be scientific evidence for it.
Okay, what's that then?
But we don't know yet.
So that's an appeal to the future fallacy.
I knew it.
Anyone else, maybe from Discord? Any scientific evidence of gravity? Fine. Statement to follow up. There is no scientific evidence of anything related to being on a sphere, gravity or otherwise.
How about mathematical evidence? I'd be happy with that at this point.
Well, certain things can, of course, be measured if they exist. But unfortunately, our values and geometric horizons do not exist in physical reality, therefore cannot be measured to give you some sort of physical evidence within maths, which is presumably where you're angling for physicality and evidence to be tied to maths, right?
Yeah, like a M2 value and Newtonian, M1 and Einsteinian. Yeah.
That's one of my favourite Black Swan segue debunks. So, when they say gravity as a mass attracting mass, it's like, where'd you get the centre of M1? Black Swan. End of that argument, right? That's epic. They have to describe to them their own nonsense about how gravity works in pseudo-force space or how it's 106 years out of date as mass attracting mass. You just point out there and go, that's the end of the argument. It's the same with axial rotation. It's like you spend all this time learning how to argue about axial rotation and Coriolis deviation and deflection at 15 degrees an hour. And then you just realise that, I don't need any of that. Where'd you get the radius value? You haven't got it. We've debunked it. Oh, well, that's the end of that assertion. If you're new listening, and you don't understand or appreciate the devastating and awesome power of the Black Swan, look into it. There's plenty of videos been made about it. Some of them incredibly succinct and concise in terms of how it works and how it debunks the sphere permanently. Like, there's no going back once you appreciate it. Shout out to this is a new one. One fodder unit. One fodder unit? Okay. It says, by pot, continue to slaying scientism zealotry. Have I read that correctly? By pot? Does he mean by marijuana? Are you punting for business here? Right. What's going on? Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Continue slaying scientism zealotry. Yes, that bit I definitely understand and appreciate. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. One fodder unit. What a serene name. I love it.
Yeah, that way you can get high, but not into space.
This show does not condone drug use of any kind. Thank you anyway for the super chat. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Negative.
Somebody in my chat today was complaining again about how the second law of thermodynamics only applies to isolated systems, which don't exist.
Okay.
And it
cool.
was like,
Did you address that, Arwin? And if so, how
yeah,
did you
no,
address
of course I addressed that in
How did you
full.
address
It's
it?
just, but even if you don't know the details, then even just basic critical thought would blatantly show how that's a paradoxical, the entire reasoning of that. Because how can something become a natural law, which means that there's no exceptions to it in physical reality? Then how could it only apply to something that doesn't exist, that only exists in conceptions? How could it ever become a natural law? But the troll guy held on to it for his life until he got banned, of course.
Okay, can I cover that and pull it apart a bit? Anybody else got any
Sure.
comment before I do? No? Fine. So, ideal gases and isolated systems do not exist in nature. Therefore, the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the gases. Wrong. And I'll explain how. All laws of nature do is describe things. They are descriptions. So, descriptions of what? Things that occur always. Now, to make those descriptions more palatable, digestible, understandable, they are simplified for the sake of description. Now, the simplified descriptions include hypothetical or non-existent things. Ideal gases being one of them. There is no ideal gas. But to describe something that occurs always in nature, you simplify the process and describe it with an ideal gas. Ergo, a description of an entropy increase with an ideal gas can be described verbally and then demonstrated with bromine. The effect that's being described occurs always and can easily be demonstrated. The description of that effect is the law of nature. The description of what occurs always. Simplifying it to make it understandable with things like isolated systems and ideal gases doesn't change that those simplified descriptions are detailing something that occurs always. So to say that the simplified abstract words used are abstract words, therefore the thing doesn't occur always, is non sequitur. Laws of nature are descriptions of things occurring always. So to say because there's something abstract within the description, it makes the overall description false is a fallacy of composition. To say that something that is true of part of the description is true of the whole, i.e. there's a hypothetical part of the description, therefore the whole description is incorrect, is a fallacy of composition. Any more?
Right.
Any more for
What
any more?
what does isolated system mean in that description? Because aren't we in an isolated system if we're contained? Like
No,
we're
you're in a
isolated in
no.
that system.
No. Closed means that energy can still go in and out of the system, not matter. Yeah? So, an isolated system, nothing goes in or out at all. But there's no systems like that in nature. There's closed systems and there's open systems, but there's no isolated systems where there's no energy transfer. There's only systems that are closed where there's no matter getting in and out.
So energy can transfer outside of the container that we're in?
What, matter? You don't.
No, he asked energy.
Did you
That's
say
a good
energy?
point, though. How do we know for sure that this isn't an isolated system?
Because I'm getting really hot. Because I'm hot. That's why. There's energy coming into this system from externally, as far as I can tell. The sun is a massive entropy generator.
But how do you know it is outside of the container?
Yeah, you've got me there. I don't.
Exactly.
However, within what we can observe within the nature that we do experience, hence law of nature, there are no isolated systems.
Right. Everything within the container is all closed system based, right? That
Correct.
makes sense.
So it's the same sort of segue from your flat Earth perspective as somebody asking me, well, why would space be fake? Surely it's just space outside of the container. Like, all right, so you're a globe believer who's accepted we must have containment to have gas pressure, but you don't want to relinquish space. You just want to think it's beyond some flap you can open. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? This thing on?
Nothing. Magnetics doesn't support it. Any molten activity doesn't support it. Digging down doesn't support it. It's the most unsupported science fiction concept that is involved in the heliocentric system.
But with the best story that goes along it. I'm not going to detail the story of Thea right now, but it is a pretty good story, wouldn't you agree?
Well, it is interesting. It's like a story of big ball-shaped titans, isn't it? That's kind of how they made that. A clash of titans, and then everything changed, and then, ooh, now we're here.
Amazing, isn't it? Are we done with housekeeping? Did we cover everything?
Did we get gas pressure without a container yet?
No, we didn't. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Yeah, the
You'll need
second
two
law of
containers.
thermodynamics not applying to nature.
Right, I
Sorry.
had 2 containers.
Yeah, that's what we find. For them to demonstrate it, they need 2 containers.
Well, that's unfortunate. Had a giant super chat from Lost Cat FE. Right, I'm going to do my damnedest to read this off my small monitor. Let's bring it up on the big one so people can see how badly I bosh this out. I drove around my block and came to the exact same spot. Now my block is a sphere too. It won't be too long before dinosaurs are ripping up my grass again. Why did I ever believe this kind of crap? Dinosaur sex must have been too weird to even talk about. And yet here I am talking about it off a super chat, Lost Cat FE. I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much. $50. Wow. Thank you very much.
That's a good point. How did Tyrannosaurus rexes actually procreate?
Meanwhile, coming up on Flat Earth Debate, more Flat Earth Debate.
No, I agree. How did we believe all this? I mean, we were taught it in school and we just believed it.
I just tell the lie often, all the usual stuff. It's a long time since somebody's asked me that question. Subliminally plant all of these things into everyday life so you don't notice. Reinforce the lie all the time. Plant the lie deep and hard when you're young. What else can I give you as the list for explanations for that, Neil? I don't know. That's about it. Anybody else got anything to add to that?
Yeah, humans are just programmable people. Like, it's all the time. We live on routine. So if you get told something 4 or 5 times, like Nathan was just saying, it becomes your life. This is why they make a character out of you, and you have cliques and everything in school, and yeah, you got to choose. But you're only given so many options to what they want you to look at. That's how the world works.
Yeah, but I was fascinated with dinosaurs as a kid. I loved it. Go to the Museum of Natural History to see the bones, to find out that they're fake. Hmm.
That's the
Well,
point.
that's how
Excited
school
children.
works, doesn't it? You get a multiple choice question, and then there's only wrong answers, but you learn which wrong answer to pick in order to get through it.
You know, I hope it's okay to say this. It's like the conversation I was having with Jedi the other day about genders and stuff, and I don't need to go into the whole topic about that, but how it works. All it takes is them saying, this is what goes on in the system and in your world today, right? And there's this many genders. And then what happens is the friends, just like your favorite color, go, well, what's what's your gender? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? And it spreads to the children. So all they have to do is say one thing in school. We look at them like their authority, and that's the end of it.
The end of it or the beginning of it?
Well, the end of it, I think, when you first,
Yeah.
literally a fresh little sponge, if you want to think of kids' brains as like a sponge, when those connections are made, when those neural connections are made, they're the only thing they've got to build on. You know, when I use my example of a guy who's trying to cross a ravine, in terms of describing how neural pathways are created, you throw the rope across the ravine, you climb across the rope, it's very shaky, but then when you throw it across to go back, you've got two ropes and it's much easier. And the more times you throw the rope across the ravine, in other words, the more times you think about something and do something, the more it's going to be a strong bridge or a strong neural connection. Well, for a child, it's that first rope across the ravine. That's their only route, that's their only path, and it's the only thing to build upon. So once it's been thrown across that ravine and put in there as their mental pathway that they're going to build upon, that's it. It's cemented in their being for the rest of their natural born life, potentially. You do have to, however, reinforce that lie frequently. But, like I say, once that pathway's been built, it can only be made stronger. And to break it is very, very difficult. You know, chopping down that very, very well-made bridge that's a child's idea of where their reality is hard to chop down. You know?
You know,
So-
just to
so
make an
that's great,
example,
guys.
Jedi
Hey, Adam.
children come over and they were teaching rotation in school still by which way your drains spin. This is the nonsense that's going on in our school systems. And then the kids come home and they tell you, look what I've learned. And then you're like, wait a minute, this is all wrong. But if you don't talk
The bit-
about it with your children, you can't fix it.
We'll
the
cover
bit
that.
funny says here is when you have that sort of thing, but those bridges, as Nathan's describing, are built to the point where a grown person, grown biological male, believes that if he has an operation, he'll be able to breastfeed his child. Those bridges can be so false. By the time they've realised how false their bridges, they're already affecting another human being. They're the concerns I have with these sorts of things. That
Right, like a pyramid scheme.
you do what you want to yourself. You know, it's up to you. It's your right. I'd support you in that. But
There are
Well,
instances
then-
of
Sorry,
male.
Nathan,
Hold
about
on.
that.
This is
Pyramid
totally
no,
off
no,
topic.
that's galactorrhea. It is not the same as breast milk. Very, very different. It's just caused by obscene amounts of hormones, which cause breast swelling
Ew.
and secretion. It is not breast milk.
Now,
It's true, though.
hold on. So I had a first-hand account from Ukdina Walker about men breastfeeding in times of very severe drought. Well,
Yeah, I suppose if you strap a couple of water bottles to your chest, you could do it.
No, men lactating. I've had
No.
somebody give me a first-hand account of that.
Nah.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you what I've been told. I'm not saying I'm claiming it.
You get with estrogenization, you get breast tissue forming and that, but you're not going to get all the ducting and everything forming. You're not going to get the production of milk. You'll get some bits and bobs which may, in a vague. Remember that first and primarily, the breast milk doesn't even pharmacologically be stimulated to be produced until you've had a child. There's no signals for the milk.
Good point.
Yeah, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. You may be able to ingest hormones and get, like I say, what's called galactorrhea in a man, which is what's, you know, but it's not breast milk. Don't pretend it's breast milk. It's man tit sweat.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Gross.
I know, but that's what it is, isn't it? And that's where you are harming another individual then, when you're trying to tell them that this is the nutrition as designed, and you're only fooling yourself. That bridge does not exist.
Okay.
Could it be considered half and half?
Half
No.
and half.
Is it? We don't call it half and half here. We call it semi-skimmed.
I'm guessing you saw that recent. I'm guessing you saw that recent footage of a guy.
Go on.
I'm guessing you saw that recent footage of a guy breastfeeding a baby. Anyone see that? It was fucked up.
Let's
You know-
that's the language. Can we change the subject? This is supposed to be flat Earth debate.
That is mine, but I'm looking it up, and I think Nathan might be right too, because it is possible for a hormone prolactin to actually happen in a male, and that's the only way it's possible for them to lactate. I'm
Okay,
just
let me-
looking
let
it
me-
up. I don't
That's
know.
exactly what I said, but it's not breast milk.
Okay, fine.
And that's about it.
I'll just
Yeah.
expand on the
Would it
circumstances. Hold on. Everyone's triggered on this, and we'll round it out. I'll expand on what was explained to me. We are talking about very, very elderly males, yeah, where they have a completely different hormone balance, and it's in extreme circumstances. And from what I understand from Adam now, there may be a biological process that is explainable in males of a very, very, very old age. I'm talking about something completely different. We're at cross purposes. I'm describing something a Native American has told me, who's God, I really hope she's not listening. Who's older? That's the word. Thank God. Came to me at the last moment. An older lady explained this to me from her first-hand experience. Okay, so in those extreme circumstances, that's what I'm detailing. You're detailing something about pop culture and trans people. Am I wrong?
Right.
Right. That's definitely not the topic of this show.
It's
Neither
not
is.
what's happening, right? But it is possible, correct? Yeah.
I don't know how we went from Neil asking about how did I ever believe that we're on a sphere to us transitioning, no pun intended, to a discussion about men feeding babies. I mean, I've never seen such a wild segue.
Because on the cover of Sports Illustrated, you have a transgender first ever. That's how this whole thing started. At least that's what I hear from yesterday.
So what?
I have a
Okay, we're on
question
this
to Adam.
whether I like it or not. So what?
I have a
Well,
question
Nathan,
to
it's very
Adam.
confusing. Okay, it's not fair to women who work hard for what they want to accomplish.
Stop.
That they
Stop.
get knocked
Stop.
out.
Stop. Got a woman here. Stop. How many times have you read Sports Illustrated, Stacey?
I'm not reading
Never.
this, Mums.
Being
I know
honest.
that much.
Yeah, but she might have tried to be a
Hello.
model.
Hello. Is your name Stacey?
I just got
It
excited.
could be.
Maybe it is. We talking about this world? You
Probably the funniest part.
That was epic. Sorry, let's just try that again. Stacey, when did you last read Sports Illustrated?
I have never.
This doesn't seem like a problem in the first instance, Neil. Anything else? You could
No.
stop reading Sports Illustrated, you realise, Neil.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe Stacey wanted to be a model for that one day.
This is
And
not
then she
about
gets
Stacey.
bumped up by-
No, that's not what I asked her. This is not about Stacey.
Maybe the Earth prefers to be referred to as curved.
I could kiss you. Indeed. Maybe the Earth identifies as curved. That's definitely true. However, in reality, Earth is flat. How did we ever believe it?
About Gaia
Yes.
now?
Go ahead, Darwin.
No, I was actually going to bring it back into the subject and ask a medical question to Adam. So about the man thing, I'm not even going to get into the details, but if you'd have like a fetal implant, could that somehow actually trigger the hormonal conditions to turn man boobs into proper breasts? Is that
I suppose if you took all of the female hormones, the prolactins, you could, like Frankenstein a man, yeah. But yeah, you could Frankenstein a man to get something. But again, remember what it's produced for. What the body's. Yeah, this is just nonsensical. Could you inflame and get something coming out of it? Yes. Does that mean that a man can breastfeed? No. We can mess around with him and cause side effects in him that are so freaky that it looks like he's producing breast milk. Yeah. But he'll lose so much else. All the hair will fall out of his legs and all, you know what I mean? It's a man is not designed to be like that, is he? He's designed to run on testosterone. and not have that testosterone taken away. Yeah, and to then allow milk production to override all those other hormonal systems just to override that milk production one. So I suppose, yeah, in a Frankenstein way, I concede.
So back in the
That's why
Definitely
they
not
have
saying
those,
anybody should
those
try
things
that.
that
I
you wear
was ju-
over you that are boots for men, that you can actually, men, if they want to be close like a woman is breastfeeding and with their baby, they can actually do that, but they can't do it themselves. Whatever is going to be produced is not going to be enough.
the only time one of my children, when cuddling sweetly, tried to get my nipple in her mouth, I was absolutely horrified.
Snap! Yeah. Ah!
Oh my God, what are you doing? Paula, take this baby away from me quick. It wants to breastfeed from me.
It was the same with me, Nathan. When I wanted to breastfeed my children, my wife expressed it and I fed early on from a bottle. It was the only way as a man I could get involved, you know? I'd done my bit 9 months earlier, to be fair.
There's plenty to get involved with as a bloke. Other than breastfeeding, basically everything.
Who would want to? I seen my wife jump and push the baby away. They bit down so hard.
Yeah.
I would not want to breastfeed.
Hey, Adam, what kind of wine was in that bottle?
Okay, have we exhausted this topic?
Yeah, it's just a bit tit for tat for me.
Stop milking it.
It started with how did we be deceived, and we've moved on to pop culture topics, sensitive pop culture topics, because for all I know, there might be somebody watching. I mean, I was going to segue it on, for comedic sake, onto Monty Python. So in Life of Brian, there's a scene where one of the guys wants to be a woman. He wants to be referred to as Loretta. And the people around him say, well, we'll fight for your right to be known as Loretta. And while at the time it was laughed at, now that is policy. Well, that's the world we live in. You know, it's a long time since the 70s. Well,
Yeah,
like with...
that was very early.
I'm nearly there,
programming.
Neil. Like with the COVID restrictions, this is the society you live in. Now, you might not like the way the Matrix is wired. Tough. That's just all I can say, tough. Now, that's not to say that I disagree with Adam. I actually completely agree with him, and I recognise his passion for the subject. But by the same token, I still accept my own fertility in the Matrix. You know? Now, does that mean that the people won't band together and change these things? I don't know. Maybe. But ultimately speaking, I'm trying desperately to segue it back onto how we manoeuvred into understanding these things to be the case, when they might not necessarily be so, certainly with the nature of our reality. And that has been done through indoctrination, brainwashing, if you will. Basically, putting false information into you and just reasserting it over and over and over and over again. That's all they do. That's what brainwashing is. So, why have we accepted it? How was I so stupid, if I want to paraphrase what Neil's asking? Well, because you were brainwashed with this information from a very early age. Now, the other stuff that people are being brainwashed, or their kids are brainwashed with, you can't fight against it. You know, my kids don't watch TV, they're home educated, but does that mean that they're not subject to everything else that's there as the reaffirming of the brainwashing that they're expected to have had by now? No, they're still subject to that, so they still take it in on the periphery. So no matter how much I fight against them making preconceived notions based on information that's told them as true when I know damn well it isn't, they're still going to make their own those notions concrete, because they're subjected to the overwash, the re-washing of your brain, which is what we get as adults when we just see globes in Family Guy, or, you know, stories at the cinema of going to space. That's just, you know, reaffirming the same brainwashing over and over and over again. The only advice I can give is don't subject yourself to it, then you won't be so concerned about it. And your concern, I'm going to use you as an example, Neil, your exasperated concern in this regard for this subject has a very negative effect on those around you. Either suddenly they're hearing it and seeing that you're reacting to it in a negative way, which has its own negative connotations on them, or they hear something that they may have assessed and decided as true that you're saying is wrong and brace against it, which is what Neil's actually experiencing. So all of those things, every one that I've just detailed, is very negative. Now, how do you solve that? Well, if you're not subject to it, you're not concerned by it. You know, my kid pointed out that I've got loads of moles all over my back today. I was like, I've never seen my back, really? She's like, yeah. And I asked my wife, I was like, have I got a really moly back? She's like, yeah. I was like, I never knew. And I thought, well, for the 40 years I've been on this earth, I didn't know and didn't care. It didn't affect my life. Not that moly back's going to affect anybody's life particularly. But what I'm saying is, to take it to an extreme, some people get very self-conscious about certain aspects of their body. But if you don't know, you don't care. Ignorance is actually bliss. Now, in terms of when you found out that something's a lie, just don't subject yourself to it over and over again intentionally. That's the only thing you can do. Now, it's the same advice you get if you're dealing with psychopathy or narcissists. No contact ever again. Just keep away from them. If you know they're liars, don't associate with them. Then they can't lie to you. Further to that, the people around them, if you're associating with them, they'll disseminate their lies to you by way of triangulation. And it's the same by tertiary information. I'm not saying detach yourself from all family and friends that are non-flat earthers, because they'll poison you too. But the example still stands. You're going to get subject to triangulation by people who are already brainwashed and don't want to relinquish that. So if you never mentioned that you realise the earth is obviously and observably flat, you didn't bring it up, you didn't watch any of the brainwashing, you go around to a family dinner, everyone around the table has been, and at some point it'll come up in the vernacular. It'll just be part of the language. So you can't completely disassociate yourself from everybody to not triangulate or not be triangulated in terms of the nonsense that you're being subjected to. You just can't do that. So then what do? We're back to what I said to, I don't want to get back onto the subject, but my address to Adam, which is, so what are you going to do? Do we rise up? Well, no, you can express your frustration, which is what Adam has done. But further to that, again, something with negative connotations, what can you actually do? Well, you could educate people, which is what effectively Adam has done. He's opened his mic. Go ahead, Adam.
Can I just add to that? Because, yeah, the bit you were talking about in terms of Indians, I found quite interesting. So I've looked that up. It's wicked, but it's just a paragraph I read. Human male breastfeeding is possible, but production of the hormone prolactin is necessary. Okay, so male breast lacks special lobules that are anatomically present in females' breasts. And this is the bit that relates to you. Male lactation has been seen during recovery from starvation, okay, not during starvation. And the postulation is that because the glands that produce the hormones are smaller than the liver, these glands recover from the rehydration quicker, start producing the hormones more, and the liver is much slower to catch up. So that's why you get this imbalance, which leads to galactorrhea.
Which bit did I get wrong? It's not in drought.
It's not. It's recovery from starvation that it can occur, not actually during the start. You may get a bit during as your liver packs up, but what they're saying is during the recovery phase, your liver recovers slower than the glands that are producing a lot of the hormones. Therefore, your body's not able to regulate and get everything back in balance. So you get these imbalances, of which one could cause galactorrhea in males.
Which, according to the person I spoke to, proved useful in certain circumstances for certain tribes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was told. I'm just telling you what I was told.
Useful. You'd have to virtually kill somebody to get them to the point of dehydration and death, yeah, and then get them to recover, and then you might get a bit of special man milk. Might be the key, I think, because it depends on this imbalance and how that plays out within the individual.
I'll try it tomorrow. I'll let you know how I get on.
Please. I'm really intrigued. That's why I took it up. So,
hey, Chocolate.
That doesn't sound useful.
Chocolate, save us from this. Talk about flat Earth, please. I've tried 4 times.
It's that bad, huh?
I thought you might have brought some cookies to go with the milk, but
I literally, Chocolate, I just did a full-on 3.5-minute ramble, and the end response was to take it straight back onto man milk. I mean, literally, I tried.
The response was to with regard to what you said. The only way to deal with this is to go into it and look and have an informed opinion on what you're doing yourself and read it. And that's why I'm happy to go back and be prepared to change what I've been told. If there's something there new, I'm happy to discuss it. But from what I can see, the way you address misinformation is to become informed.
We're vigilant here. So that's typical of us in this particular group, if you want to put us in a group. We're all vigilant people. In other words, we want to know what the actual case is. We want to know what the facts of the matter are. Not what the rhetoric says. Not what we should believe. We want to know what's actually what. And unfortunately, that means that quite often, more often than not, we have to say we don't know. I'm not saying this is the case. I'm just thinking the only segue I can use that will never get it back onto that subject again. So I talk about the sun and how I do not know what it is. I mean, Pete Shea was in our chat the other day, or yesterday, and saying, it's been so many years, you must be a shill because you'll never say what the sun is. I'm like, I don't know what it is. What do you want me to do, lie? He's like, yeah, well, it's Aristarchus. I'm like, yeah, all right. So I could just make up any old shite and that would satisfy you that I'm not a shill. No, I don't know what it is, but that's wonderful. You know, that is the best bit. In fact, that's what I said to Eddie Bravo, was chasing me down to try and get somebody on the show. And I'm not going to lie, it's not the first time that's happened. There's been several occasions where people of a higher profile than myself have contacted me and said, can you take apart this person? I'll get them on the show. And to date, it hasn't actually happened. The only time it did happen was by pure chance when DITRH asked me to do a similar thing. But the guy joined of his own volition, as far as I can tell. But there we go. It was like, Dirth was like, there's a big super chat. If you can get this guy on your show, I'll give you a big super chat. And he just happened to come on the show. I was like, yeah, I still want that super chat. I am poor. But anyway, my point was that Eddie Bravo's question to me was, gun to your head, what's the moon? And I was like, I don't know, but that's the best bit. It's a world of pure wonder now. For anybody that's got a childlike sense of wonder, finding this out is fantastic. For anybody that just likes to be grounded and know what's what and have all the explanations done and you don't have to do anything, it's the worst news ever. Because suddenly all the things you thought you knew aren't true anymore. And that's devastating to a lot of people. Half, I would say, 50% of the people react that way. Shout out to Helio Pabon, says, Flay Earth. I think he missed the T. Flat Earth. Thank you very much for the super chat.
My first reaction was horror, but, I kind of got my childlike sense of wonder back.
Yeah, that's it. I get that. That's why you're a very, very valuable guest. And I'm not saying that to put anybody else here down. But you've got that very cemented, and I've kept it there, hopefully, by asking you about it over and over again. You were slipping off that knife edge down the wrong side of the fence towards anti-flat Earth. Oh my God, this can't be the case. This is terrible. I went and woke my wife up and went, wow, it's amazing. Earth's flat. Because I was so excited about it.
So where do I fit in? Because I said this before. I literally berated my brother and just kept bringing up NASA and this and that. How can everybody lie? You're telling me that everybody's in on this secret. You're out of your mind. We went to the moon. I hit him with everything in 2 weeks until I couldn't find any evidence of this sphere.
And that's the point that you asked the question. There would have been a point during those 2 weeks where you were in limbo on the knife edge I've just described. Well, at some point you slip off it, right? Well, you either slip down the fence on the flat Earth side and then, in some instances, spend a long time looking through the fence, back through the fence at the globe side, going, you're all in a nut house. Come on, look, you're being governed by complete nutters telling you lies. And they all spit on you from the other side of the fence. It's true. The metaphor's so accurate.
On the other side of the fence for a while.
You slip down the other side of the fence, so you're right next to the fence. You can see the flat Earth side through the fence, but you're on the globe side still.
Yeah. There for I'd say about 2 years. Yeah, I was spitting on flat earthers. Yeah.
But back in my metaphor, when you're researching it in Neil's 2-week period, you sat on the top of a very fine tightrope, a knife edge, and you can clearly see on the other side, flat Earth. It's there. You're looking straight at it. And on the other side, the side you've come from, is the nut house with all the nutters. And when you slide down back to the globe side, you've already seen over the fence. That's why a lot of their arguments on the anti-flat Earth side are in contradiction of globe arguments, because they've stood on the knife edge at some point and seen how flat it is. So they've got to contradict the globe arguments. They've heard the flat Earth arguments. They spend a significant period of time effectively being brainwashed by us. And their cognitive dissonance takes them to arguments that debunk the globe, just so they can argue with us against our debunking.
Well, I thought I was measuring curvature with the dip angle, you know? I thought that measurement bound me to that sphere, you know? When that was invalidated, it kind of all fell apart from there.
John, can I ask you a question? How you clung on to that? Because certainly back at the beginning of my journey, you know, there were people who were pulling out opera apps and going up mountains and showing these things as they maintained it. But say, through investigating, reading, looking, and just sentient thought, became apparent. Even this is before Black Swan. That wasn't the case. Maybe I wasn't at the Black Swan stage where we could destroy it totally, but you could see that it wasn't anything physical. What it was, I didn't have a decent answer for back then, but I was quite happy to know that can't be the case. So why did you keep validating it? Why is it because you had to, or was there something that your brain was twisting to make you accept it? You see what I mean?
Well, I was coming from an atheistic background where I thought the only things that existed were the things you could measure, and they were physical. So when I would see the horizon, you know, therefore it's physical within my paradigm. And when I could measure it, you could see farther as you go higher, therefore it's geometric. You know, I never thought to measure the distance to the horizon.
But
I just never thought to.
Does the notion that the horizon would move back and forth, like every other day or every hour, like did that not ever kind of take away the physicality assumption that you had with it?
Oh,
because
well,
I can never really, I mean, just speaking for myself, I can never really sit and think when I thought, oh, the horizon, that's where the curve starts. Like, to me, it always just seemed like what it is. It just an apparent position. Like it looks certain a certain amount of miles away one day, and then it's like later on that day it could change. So to me, it just never struck me as something that could be physically blocking anything.
Well, before the Black Swan, refraction could bring it closer, and so could geographical obstruction. And within my paradigm, that's what I thought. But I thought without obstruction, you know, there was.
So you mean even
to it.
before the discussion, you were already thinking in the terms of refraction is probably doing something for that. Like even before getting into globe and flat Earth and all that. That's what you're saying,
right? Well, yeah, I mean, I accepted that refraction was real. I understood, you know, the idea behind 7/6R when you're bringing up stuff with respect to the horizon. Else I couldn't have been a glober.
That's weird, because to me, like, refraction was just like, well, at least back then, it was just kind of, you know, how they show you the pencil in the water. Oh, that's refraction. It's broken, right? You know, I never really related that to the horizon, and that being the start of the curve of the Earth. Like, to me, it's just so many things that, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just the type that if it doesn't relate to me, I'm okay with just letting it go.
Yeah, because you're.
Well, now
I was just gonna say, Chocolate's question is post Black Swan. How'd you deal with the horizon moving? Well, pre Black Swan, to quote Rumpus, you know it's refracted because of its position with respect to the horizon. And what John's saying is, well, as long as with your elevation increasing, you've got it changing based on the fact that it is a geometric horizon, that makes perfect sense. So the horizon moving, well, yeah, it's dictated by the observer's height. So therefore, it moves when you go higher. Fine. And you know that the things that are coming back when they argue within the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator are refracted. Well, you know why, because their position with respect to the geometric horizon that should be blocking them but isn't. They're just refracted up with respect to the horizon. Again, using a geometric horizon. It's the reason rumpus isn't allowed here anymore, because of that very statement. You know it's refracted because of its position with respect to the horizon. It's a statement that the horizon's geometric, it's got to be, you're drawing a tangent to it, and your dip angle measurement gives you R. And the thing that you're looking at, the target, is moving with respect to it. And you're just bending the light that it bends around the sphere at some assumed rate, 7/6R in standard form terrestrial refraction. And that all makes sense until the horizon's no longer geometric. Then it all fails.
Correct.
Without a tangent point physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon, you cannot assert the geometry, you cannot obscure things with the horizon, and you cannot derive an R value from it to give you the maths to bend the light to move the horizon. The entire thing descends into a paradox upon rebuttal from anti-flat earthers, many of whom have slipped off that knife edge because of the black swan, and now tell us that the geometric position that they utilise with the tangent is actually refracted. In other words, their rebuttal debunks the globe claim, while they stare through the fence at us, at the flat earth we dwell atop.
Yeah, they pretty much say all the measurements we claimed in the past are invalid. That's how we explain this.
Exactly, and when I caught rumpus in that very problem for them, that every single assertion that a physical geometric sphere edge blocked the bottom of the Isle of Man with a refracted value in feet and inches with respect to that geometric horizon, when I asked him if he refracted the horizon back at the Isle of Man, he said he did. And he lied. He can't have done. He required tangents and drew them in his maths. So he couldn't have refracted it. His maths wouldn't have worked. Therefore, he had to lie about it. And has been excluded from this debate forever because he's now just a liar trying to lie to you about being on a globe. And when he does physical geometric assertions with horizons that are blocking things, he'll later lie and say they were refracted. Well, that's not tolerable. We're here for truth. We're vigilant. He's here for lies. He wants to con you into belief that you're on a sphere.
Yeah, that was enough for me. Like that made me climb back over the fence.
My advice is run away from the fence, he says while he runs a flat earth debate show and invites people in daily to discuss it. But run from the fence. You know, don't spend your time trying to convert the nutters in the nut house. You know, shockingly, if you've managed to escape a cult, is the best advice to go back to the compound walls, climb up and look over them and go, "Oi, the cult leader's a nutter. They're sending dicks to space. They're laughing at you." Or just go away from the compound, as far away as you possibly can. And the flyers...
That's what Leah Remini's doing.
Say again, Neil.
That's what Leah Remini's doing, the actress with that Scientology. She was caught up in it, and now she's trying to enlighten people. And they're going after her.
My wife doesn't often chime in on this subject, but she chimed in when it came to Scientology. We discussed it a few weeks ago for whatever reason. And her speculation was absolutely profound. In terms of how you would move away from a heliocentric system and leave that in a little pigeonhole, because you can't eradicate it completely, it's part of the history. How do you then segue that into a non-flat earth part of society that's just those guys over there? Well, she postulated that would be done with Scientology. So I point out to her, the reason this subject came out was to say that, what is Scientology? Well, it's heliocentrism. Just a very, very tiny offshoot. It's identical, basically. Scientology is just heliocentrism. Everything about it is based in heliocentrism. It's a heliocentric religion. Sun at centre, Earth moving around it, aliens. It's same, almost identical currently because you've got aliens in your narrative in the news. So what's the difference? Well, a few little bits of bobs about what will happen with the Archons, but other than that, it's the same bloody thing. The system's the same. Well, wouldn't that be useful if you're going to transition? Like in 1984, well, the stars could be close if we want them to be. It's not beyond our mathematicians. But when that transition happens, first you need to soften people up. That's what we're here for, in my opinion. And then eventually there's just a transition period that nobody notices. And then, we always knew it was flat. But that leaves you with a subcategory of society that are going to be pigeonholed as just the Scientologists. The nutters that think that we're moving around the sun. And that the black bit, when it's dark, is actually a vast area with people living in it, called aliens. Yeah, those are just the nutters that think we move around the sun.
Ah, that's pretty good, Nathan.
It's not me, that was my wife.
Well, what if heliocentrism actually serves a purpose, like keeping the nutters in the nut house kind of thing?
Nah, there's a lot of money and expense in terms of the brainwashing and keeping it part of the paradigm. And also, you know, when you consider that, from what I can establish, the people we debate with have had interrogation training. Now, I didn't know what it was that they had until you stumble across it and find people that can do the same thing they do. And people who interrogate people, or polygraphers, I don't know the exact term for the person's career title, but people who operate polygraph are essentially the most skilled interrogators. And the training that they undergo and the techniques that they employ are basically identical to the tactics we experience in debate from our opponents when they are the upper echelons in terms of skill level of debaters. They're using interrogation and resistance to interrogation tactics in debate.
Yeah, they're masturbators.
What I'm saying is the people we deal with are skilled. I'm hinting at things that people can obviously expand on from, which I am definitely not going to verbalise. But the implication of what I'm saying is pretty clear. I'm not being subtle. My point is that there's efforts that are definitely being made to not only deal with any backlash from the brainwashing, but also maintain the brainwashing. That's very much prevalent and takes time, effort, expense to do all of that. So to say, well, you know, maybe it just self-perpetuates or is of a benefit to keep the nutters here, it's like, I don't think so. Constant brainwashing of absolutely everybody, I don't see that as being beneficial to anybody other than somebody who wants control and power.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if people knew it was flat, would they test their boundaries? And would the universe be a better place if we left this area we're contained within?
I don't know. Why would you want to leave? I think we live in a fantastic place.
Well, I don't want to leave, but there are people who do.
Well, that's because of the programming of how it's not worth it, right? It's because of their messages about the Earth, where it comes from, what your place in it is, that would make you long for anything else but here. It's part of the trick.
Correct, Darwin.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think I disagree. I think it's something inherent in people that we want to, find out things.
Yeah, and Arwen's not disagreeing with that. He's saying that it's beneficial to prevent that, as opposed to talking about you as an individual with your human nature. The people that are putting this narrative out there's obvious benefits to them. Namely, keeping us all well under control.
Take their power, want our rights. They want all our rights to come from government.
Governmental.
Well,
yeah.
By definition, rights can't come from government. That's a non sequitur. Liberty comes from government. Rights come from external source.
With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!